we were very interested in exploring what sort of integrated content experiences, educational content experiences, could we create using the Sesame Street characters and curriculum. And so we started talking with Qualcomm and entered into now about a year-long collaboration in which it's really an R&D partnership that will probably lead to a commercial product, but where we've been working with them and their Euphoria engine to develop some new play patterns, to use your term, that integrate traditional playset or dollhouse play with a tablet-based AR experience. And so just to take a minute to show you it through the miracle of this device, which is, believe it or not, called the Elmo camera. So this is a simple mat. In theory, could be printed from a browser. And that mat is, thank you, is recognized by the tablet once it gets going here. Load. And that is recognized as Bert and Ernie's living room. I don't know if you can see there. You can tell it's their living room because that's their picture on the wall. And so we're looking down into this three-dimensional four-walled space. And I can take Ernie. Of course, most often when, as you'll see when my colleague shows you some of our kid testing experiences and some of the videos from that, kids are holding it a little bit less of a bird's eye view, but if you'll just bear with the Elmo camera. So if I place Ernie into the living room, let's see here. This was working earlier. Let's see. There he is. It's having a little trouble at this angle. And so Ernie comes to life, knows where he is, talks to you, and starts giving suggestions for further interactions. So he'd like to have a friend in the living room with him, so I can add Bert. This angle is really tricky, and I don't know if you can hear that audio, but he's saying, put another Sesame Street friend in here with me. I'm not getting Bert because of this angle. Let's try. You should come see this at the Qualcomm booth tomorrow, where it works beautifully. Oh, I see. That's interesting. Wow, that never would have occurred to me. Now there. Oh, man. Well, I'll just persist for a moment to see if I can. Let me, hold on, let's try starting over here for a moment. Let me see if I can get it working properly. There, okay. Now, we're getting this insane reflection. All right. God, I wonder if it's the light also here. Well, you get the idea. Oh, there's Bert. Can you see that? Yeah. So now they're looking for something to play with. And I'll take this jukebox and put it in the room. And we'll have a dance party. So it is a prototype. It generally operates in a much more bulletproof way than this. And one of the terrific things about it is that we've been able to take it out in multiple phases and put it in front of kids and learn what works and what doesn't and what they get out of it. So my colleague, Mindy, can tell you more about what that experience has been like.
So in my role, I oversee the education and the research of our products, particularly in the digital media space. So I see how it's merged across any type of platform. So many of you don't know, can you get my PowerPoint? Do you have it? Well, full text.
Let's see, let's try this. Maybe we'll just resync.
All right. Here we go. So, you got it? Okay. So as Miles mentioned earlier, we at Sesame are a nonprofit, and we obviously are very committed to the education of children and making sure they are ready for school. And we are in 150 plus countries, and obviously have many lessons that we focus on in curriculum. But how that merges across platforms is where the fun begins, or for at least me. We have a very iterative process. Miles touched on it this morning, where we focus on formative research and how that influences how a product's developed, how our shows developed, and what the end result looks like. So what do we want to learn? And this is what we went into this testing or this experience asking. We look obviously for comprehension. Is a child remembering what they just experienced? Are they learning from it? Is there an appeal? What's the usability issues that come up? And generally with something like this, it's obviously going to be more focused on appeal and usability before we can really address the next phase, because we're working out those little kinks. So our goal in this was to assess children ages 3 to 5, their play patterns when using a traditional set, to use the term, traditional play set. So an old school, what was it, like 1970s,
Yeah.
like off eBay, play set. How are kids actually playing with this originally? That was one of our first questions. And assess how children interact and talk about an augmented reality experience. Assess the device functionality, the scaling issues, and all the other little things that come along when you're making a prototype. And assess how children manipulate figurines and placemats in response to the scripts that we developed over the course of testing. And then we obviously want to know, do they like it, period? And do parents like it? Because then who's going to end up buying it? So 3 phases of our formative research. In phase 1, we had 10 kids. They came in and they played for a substantial amount of time just with the traditional play set. And they were asked to create a story. And then they were supposed to take a picture of what they actually created, a story using a traditional play set. This was just to assess distance, scale-related issues. Phase 2, they played with a paper prototype and the AR figurines actually came to life, and we were able to see a child actually interact with it for the first time. And then phase 3 was the full prototype that you saw here. But based on the findings from the initial couple studies, we realized the device or the tablet is just very heavy, and maneuvering the figurines and all of the juggling back and forth was a lot for a kid. So we put it on a stand and had some interesting findings from there. So phase 1, I'll just dive into what our questions were and what answers we got out of them. What are the distance and scale issues? How do they play with it? And how do they narrate their story? And the reason we asked the narration question is because we go and script how Ernie and Bert talked to the child. So Ernie's like, hey there, why don't you put another friend in here with me? And these are all developed from our initial playing with the kids. So here's what we saw. These are not videos, but this is a typical, they put everything on one of those mats. So you see in one of those children. I mean, they piled it on. They stacked them up. The more they can get on there, the better. So that's the first thing to note. The second child wanted to use multiple rooms and create these lifelike settings. So that's something to think about as well. And obviously, the characters need to go in the chairs or on top of the potties or whatever. There is that fixation. So some things we started generating. How do we prompt a child to create this story and allow them this free play experience, as well as support them in whatever way we can? And then we asked them to take pictures, and then we obviously learned a lot from that. So what did we learn? Play patterns and traditional playset figurines. The old school figurines weren't recognizable. And as you see with this, we had maybe a couple kids figure out that was a jukebox. But they didn't say jukebox, they said a music box, and that's because there was a music note painted on it, so that helped. But just to note, going forward, they didn't really recognize the TV because it's not a flat screen TV, is what they said. So and we tested with all income levels as well. So some things to think about going forward for us is how do we create a set like this, and what are the pieces like? They love stacking things. And I will say that over and over, and you'll probably roll your eyes by the time I get to the end of the presentation, but they do. They love stacking things, and they stack them at the very end, and they want to do it in a realistic way at some point. So on the potty is a fixation. They liked the realistic objects and real-life scenarios. They set up the rooms like they would experience a room to be. And naturally, but then they would branch their imaginative play off of that. And they put many objects in one room. We went there. So another thing we noticed, the distance and scale. Many of the kids took pictures that were completely out of focus. Half of their body parts were in there, or shoes. That was something for us to note, is how would this affect device registration when we got further down the line. And they played with figurines off the play mats. So that's something to think about, and how we scaffolded the audio prompts and told a child to put something back on the mat and have Ernie and Bert create that support structure. And then with usability, they placed their fingers over the camera viewfinder initially, so something to think about in terms of how do we create instructions initially in the setup for a child to know not to do that, where to hold, that sort of thing. They knock the figurines over. What does that do with device registration? They had difficulty keeping the tablet focused and maneuvering it, holding it, taking pictures. All of those things are something to think about for a preschooler. And again, this is preschool age. And then they frequently, again, stacked objects. So our phase 2, our research questions, have now moved to actually testing the AR component of it, and this is a fun phase for us. How do they manipulate the paper figurines and placemats in response to the scripts? What additional prompts are needed for us to add into the VO and the script lines? How do they handle the loss of registration? Do they get frustrated? Because if a child gets frustrated, what are they going to do? They're going to put down the device, they're going to leave and go do something else. So we've got to keep them there. And how do children operate the device in conjunction with the figurine set? Is it too much to be moving back and forth between the two? So what do we see? This is an example. The audio might be low, but.
No, you can still hold it. Can you put your hands on it? Oh, can you put your hands around the tablet and hold it? Okay. Or you could hold it here like I'm holding it. Yeah, like that. Can you hold on to it? I know it's a little heavy. Oop. So can you try to hold it up so you can see this? Do you see it? Uh-oh. No, you don't have to turn it. You can hold it just like you were doing. Like this. Here, Lucy, like this. Whoa. What is that?
A house.
It's a house. You're so right. This is Ernie's living room. Do you think you can hold it by yourself? Can you hold it right here? Oh, you're so good. You're so good. Okay, now we have my friend Ernie, and this is his living room. So do you want to put him inside his living room?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, I know it's kind of far. Here. Great job. Now let's see what he looks like. Can you hold it up? Remember we were holding it up? Oh, lower. Right there.
They're so literal.
You see him? Let's hold it like this.
This one's a 3-year-old, but we tested 3 to 5-year-olds.
Oops. Yeah, I think he's on mute for some reason.
Oh.
Oh, thank you so much. You're really helpful. I know I just knocked that right over.
It's kind kind of the general gist of the situation. That happened quite frequently across all kids. Of course, the older ones are a little bit more able to handle it. So what did we find out? They were enamored with the AR. This is a typical scene, and I'll show you another video, but pretend this is my tablet. You typically saw the little heads going over the top, going, what is going on out there? And they had no idea. It just blew their minds, and rightfully so. They struggled to understand the context of what they're doing. So how do we set up the instructions initially so they kind of know what they're doing and why they're doing it as best we can in a child-friendly way? They had difficulty keeping the mats in the center of the viewfinder, as you saw, partly because of the weight of the device and also because of what we call the shock factor. They're just like, what is going on? And they did not know how to look closely. So when one of the prompts is from Ernie to look closely at something, it's actually meant to move your tablet in closer so that way you can look inside of something. And to them, they're touching the screen, which I'll show you some pictures as well that did not register that they had to actually physically move the device. And they were not able to walk around the playset. So initially, you had this beautiful, if you step back far enough, you could see the full Sesame Street brownstone. And if you walked around it, you get this full experience. It was amazing, and is amazing. But for the little kids, they just tended to not know where they're going and they're completely disoriented and almost walk on the playset almost every single time. They just kind of naturally migrate that direction. We also, with the registration of the device was just quite frequent. And also, just again, because of the weight of the device. We also looked at briefly with an iPhone as well to see what that would look like. That also brings up some other functionality issues, but both had similar findings. So children did have a difficulty understanding they could view the mats from multiple angles. They were pretty stationary in where they were. So phase 3, now we've moved into the full prototype at this time. So how did they use it? And how does it stand? So we decided, because of the weight of the device, what would it be like if we put it on a stand, and would that change the actual play patterns that happened? And how do they interact at this point? And what is the appeal? And particularly, what is the appeal for parents as well? We know kids are going to like it, but what do parents think? So this is what we saw, and this is a longer one, and the audio is a little bit low, but you'll see this girl become quite enamored with it and start hitting her head. I mean, in a non-destructive way. At this point, the audio will get louder, but at this point she's telling me about how she does this at home, and she's plays in her dollhouse. Can you?
Yes, ma'am. So why didn't you put Ernie on in your living room?
Hitting the head.
It talks to you? That's a really cool dollhouse. So, okay, so what did Ernie show you then? Put Sesame Street bourbon in it? Really smart. You want to put bourbon?
So to put something in there that you can watch, it's a TV. And it actually plays a little Sesame clip on the TV. So now I'm telling her to put some music in. So now we're going for the jukebox. So kind of I'll move forward, but she keeps looking around to see what's going on the playmat and loves it. She later told me that she's going to go home and try this with her Kindle. So we hope that works, but I don't know really where that's going for. Then this is a very short video, but this will show you how a child is trying to interact by touch. Oh, sorry. So she's trying to zoom in to see different elements of it, and keeps trying to touch to see if it's going to interact with her. Looks around to see what's going on. And then at this point, you need to go play the demo if you haven't yet, but the lights go out in the case of the missing rubber ducky happens, and a child has to look for a rubber ducky. And at this point, she thought that either the tablet had fallen asleep or that she was supposed to touch in order for the light to come back on, so she keeps touching. So some things for us to think about. So our findings, the floor mats didn't register because if there was color carpeting, and it's slightly problematic at Sesame because we have color everywhere, but that was something for us to think about. So if you notice, we had to put white underneath it. That's just some basic usability findings. The stand significantly enhanced play. I wish I could show you all the other footage we have as well. And they expected a dual functional experience. They wanted to be able to tap the screen as well as play with the figurines. For play patterns, they wanted to put realistic objects in each room, and they expected realistic interactions. So for example, the television, it would set up for the demo purposes, was to face the child and play this actual TV screen. Well, they don't do that because Bert and Ernie are supposed to be watching the television, so they would turn it around the other direction. So there's some things like that. Or they want Bert and Ernie to be on the toilet or in the bathtub. So some things to think about. And they didn't recognize the old school figurines. And obviously, the stacking issue. And they wanted to put more than 4 objects in the room at the same time. So how can we go about being able to meet that need in some form or fashion was the question we walked away with. And then parent feedback. They loved it. And it's probably, and I test all the time, every week with kids on all sorts of platforms. And this is one of the most positive responses we've had from parents about what they liked about it. And they felt it was a great extension to touch devices. And they mentioned that this experience took their child away from too much screen time because they actually had tangible figurines in hand. So in this way, they saw it as encouraging traditional play. And the majority of the parents thought that it enhanced imaginative play, and they just wanted more embedded educational content, which is obviously where we'd like to head with this. And they want to see packaged sets of rooms in the stores. So you can buy like the living room, or you could buy some part of the city, something like that. And they want the app to update with special surprises. So that is what we found out. All right.
Thanks, Mindy. While we're changing setup here, that's perfect. We're running a little bit late, but please stay with us. Cameron's coming up with about maybe 10 or 12 minutes of presentation. The reception will stay there. They've got enough alcohol and drinks to last everybody, so no hurry about that. And I hope we'll have a brief moment for questions afterwards, so please stick around.
So thanks for sticking around. Last minute schedule change. I'm not Alen Alonzo, Director of Exhibition Media and Interactives. I'm Cameron Browning, Exhibit Media Developer at the American Museum of Natural History. I'm on Alen's team. And I'm mostly going to talk about our new Beyond Planet Earth app that was released with the opening of Beyond Planet Earth, the Future of Space Exploration at the museum, which opened in November. But I figured I'd also give you a bit of context about the kind of work that I do at the museum and some of the experiments we've done in augmented reality and sort of how we got to our app release. So for those that aren't familiar, American Museum of Natural History is in New York City. We get about 5 million visitors a year. And I work in the exhibition department. So there you see there's an older photo of the posters for mythic creatures or gold. Right now we have Beyond Planet Earth and also Creatures of Light, Nature's Bioluminescence. So the special exhibitions within the museum. We do about 2.5 of those a year. A number of things that we've worked on in the past have small aspects of augmented reality to them. So a more general sense of mixed reality, just mixing the real and the virtual. This is a really small application that we did. I should say the application of augmented reality is small. It's a giant table with touch sensors around it with these brass buttons, but we projected over the brass buttons with the touch sensors and had these icons kind of glow. So it looks as though the images on the icons were glowing and moving when really it was actually an engraved brass button. Another table where we invited visitors to put their hands over the table, and the software would detect the hands and actually generate an image of a neuron on their hand. When multiple people, as you can see here, are putting their hands over the table, it creates a neural network, and signals get sent around. So it's sort of illustrating how neural networks are formed and how dendrites and axons in neurons work. Taking a giant Mamenchisaurus model in the world's largest dinos show and making its belly a theater. So the skin moves as the dinosaur breathes, and we had butt kickers under the benches. It's a little hard to see on there. So you can sit, and there's actually a movie that kind of plays and tells you about the lungs, and then it cuts away and shows you the lungs of the dinosaur, the heart beating, things like that. So sort of taking some augmented reality aspects and applying them to a theater. In Creatures of Light that's open now, this is an image of Alen using a giant gallery that's 35 feet long that has digital dinoflagellate creatures that sparkle when you walk around. So it's when you walk around in the real space, the digital sort of gets integrated into that. But a more classic approach to augmented reality would be something more along these lines: fiducial mark and rendering digital imagery on top of it. So first, what we were trying to do is, how can we apply this technology? So we're throwing images at it. Can we reproduce the dioramas in different spaces? Is that interesting? No. Can we take our well, it never went past that. Can we replicate our butterfly pavilion, which is wildly popular, using teeny tiny little marks, and sort of so you get the feeling of a flapping butterfly in your hand? Is that interesting? No. It's actually, I thought it was really interesting, but it sort of ties into like the learning objectives of the museum, and by showing some of these things, it's kind of like underscores the kind of mechanics that we used in the app that we went all the way through with. For the brain exhibition, we were messing with it again, looking at neuroanatomy and how you can affect it, how we can start to bring an interactive mechanic into this technology and explode the brain. So these are all from 2009, and then last year we launched the Beyond Planet Earth app, which is an exhibit mobile and web interactive. We worked with Patrick at Patched Reality who came in with some really great technology and know-how to take some of the ideas we were looking at, but bring them into the mobile space, which at the time was extremely new. Now it's pretty new. So the Beyond app, the real core of it was about explore, collect, learn, and share within our exhibition. And the reason we focused on that as a core mechanic is because it kind of mimics the scientific process. Our institution employs 200 working scientists, so we're very serious about the science in our shows, and we wanted to kind of bring a core mechanic into the application that reflected that. So the components, of course, are our exhibition, the mobile app, and also a connection to our online presence of the museum. Explore and collect, obviously very important, as I was saying, with also some explanation of how the app works. Also added a sharing component. We found that when people were experimenting with these things early on in the phases, we were saying, like, oh, this is really cool. How can I sort of take this with me? How can I show my friend this? So that's obviously important. And also to add some more information about the content that the visitors were seeing in this app. It's like, oh, I saw a picture of Saturn, but what does that mean, or why is this important, and why does this relate to the narrative of the exhibition? So the fiducial marks for this application were embedded within the interpretive content of the exhibition. So you can see here a mock-up of how they were sort of placed, and we had this collection action. So what you're supposed to do was find them and collect them for yourself. Just to give you a sense of what these look like, this is an image from Beyond Planet Earth, and this is actually while we were still working on it. If you look on the left under where it says robots, that's where the augmented reality marker went for this particular moment, which is the Mars rover moment. So we have 11 different items throughout the show that you can collect. Like I say, learning more about the particular moment, which the editorial team was really excited about in exhibitions, because there were a lot of little stories that they wanted to tell, but it didn't necessarily fit into the larger narrative of the show. So this provided an opportunity for them to put some of these stories in front of visitors. And then the sharing component, again, we allowed you to Facebook it, to Twitter it, tweet it, email it around. With the collection angle of this, we also provided a dovetail with our online presence. And what it allows you to do is once you've gone through the exhibition and collected your augmented reality moments, you can view a personalized collection on the website. So if you've only collected 5 of 11, it shows you the 5 you've collected, but then also gives you the opportunity to print out the markers at home and experience it from the web as well. So we also had a web version of this developed. So it wasn't just for iPhone users. And then again, with the web content, it was really important to put some of the current science in. So it's something that was a little easier to update. So that collections page, we could put something from, in the center we have Science Bulletins, which is a production from the museum that is all about new and current science that's going on in the museum and elsewhere around the world. And here, pardon me, I hope this doesn't pop. I'm about to plug this in. Well, wasn't too bad. Oops. Back.
The sky's the limit at the American Museum of Natural History, with the companion app to the new exhibition, Beyond Planet Earth, the Future of Space Exploration. Download the free app in iTunes before you visit the museum. Then look for 11 augmented reality icons throughout the exhibition. Use the camera on your iPod Touch or iPhone to activate 3D animations. Collect a near-Earth asteroid or the Mars rover. Watch a lunar elevator take off from the moon, and much more. Collect all the icons, then follow a link to a special website where you can find out how to download more icons, learn fascinating facts about our future in space, and share cool images with your friends. Explore, collect, learn, share with Beyond Planet Earth.
So the communications department of the museum put that together as kind of a thing to get you to download the app before you come to the museum. I'm actually running really short on time. I had to squeeze into this little slot here, so I'm going to skip the demo. But if anybody's curious and wants to see it, I'm around here for the next couple of days. This in particular was a really cool moment of the exhibition where you're seeing what would I describe it? It's like a moon house. It's a bigalow, which is like this thing that goes under the moon, inflates, and then you live in it. And the cool thing about augmented reality in this context was we could actually look inside it. So you use the augmented reality to kind of look inside it and see people kind of floating around in there. So I burned through, I went fast, but I got done. So thanks for listening.
I think we have time for some questions, so why don't we just go right ahead.